Thanks very much. A reminder, we're here to talk about the reopening of Behavioral Health Resource Center. We're going to hear some brief remarks today from Valdez Bravo, who's the interim director of the Multnomah County Health Department that oversees the BHRC. Tom Balazar, who is the Multnomah County Behavioral Health Director. Janie Gullickson, who's the executive director of the Mental Health and Addiction Association of Oregon, which operates the day center. And then we also have Dorothy Elmore, who's Multnomah County's Director of Workplace Security, and Krista Jones, who's the Senior Manager for the Community Mental Health Program, on hand here to answer any questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Valdez. We're going to hear a few remarks, and then we'll open it up to reporters' questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Joy. And thank you all for coming here today. My name is Valdez Bravo. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I serve as the interim director of the health department. The Behavioral Health Resource Center is such an important addition to the work that Multnomah County strives to do for our community. It's one of our greatest assets and our highest priorities in meeting the needs of one of our most vulnerable populations. The Behavioral Health Resource Center, or BHRC, serves people who experience chronic homelessness and mental health and/or substance use disorders. And it's a day center that offers showers and laundry, meals, access to mail and other resources, and builds relationships to help stabilize and eventually connect people to housing who currently fall outside most systems. The BHRC is unique in that it is a shared model of operation, with the county leasing the building and funding the program, but contracting with providers uniquely qualified to lead and deliver these services. And when we learned on March 30th that there may be issues, we immediately took several difficult steps in the interest of the client served and the long-term success of the organization. We made the decision to close until April 17th so as to allow partners the time they needed to execute due diligence and for other improvement work to enhance the center. You're going to hear more about it, but we replaced the security company. We changed our contracts to require more supervision and made significant upgrades to reflect what we've learned since we opened in early December. We made infrastructure enhancements, including additional security cameras inside the building, new window protection. We made upgrades to the nurses' examination room, improved ADA access on the first floor, and we removed doors in the third floor dorms per the operator's request for safety. And we're going to continue to lean into these lessons. There's a notion of plan, do, study, act. A lot of thoughtful planning went into the creation and opening implementation of the BHRC, and we've been doing, so to speak, since early December. And during that time, we've had the opportunity to look at some opportunities for growth and improvement, as with any new operation. Remember, this is a first of its kind model that we have here. And so seeing some of the opportunities, we made that decision to close so we could act and improve and take it to an even greater level of operation. We know that it's been serving so many clients, touching so many lives, hearing testimonials from the clients that have gone through there and been able to connect to services or just access basic services has meant the world to these people, to these members of our community. And we're excited for the success of the BHRC. We knew that this is a critical resource for our community and that folks need these services. So we are continuous improvement with the program, and we're just thankful to the county chair and the leadership team and all who rallied together in support of the BHRC during this opportunity for growth and improvement. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Balazar, who's going to talk about the center and what we've seen since opening.
Yeah, thanks, Valdez. Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Balazar, he and his pronouns, Director of Behavioral Health Division with Multnomah County Health Department. Thanks so much for joining us today. So to start, I'd like to identify that since opening, we've seen a tremendous demand for the services at the center. We've had over 1,200 visits the week before the temporary closure, and in total, over 17,000 visits for peer services, basic needs supports, and service connections. I think we've described this before a little bit, but I just wanted to provide some additional context about who the program is serving. The BHRC serves individuals who've been left out of other systems and other programming. The peer-driven model with MHAAO really leans on the experiences of community members who've experienced houselessness and behavioral health challenges to create a space that's low barrier and engaging to serve the needs of this population. Now, for a little bit more info about the progress, the number of referrals, and supporting participants with getting into treatment. Since December 5th, 2022, the opening of the BHRC, there have been almost 3,000 peer engagements. And a peer engagement is really something that would include resource and system navigation, coaching, mentorship, and building relationships. In addition, the program's provided nearly 300 referrals to substance abuse treatment and mental health services. We currently have a Good Neighbor Agreement, or a GNA, that's being finalized and is being led by MHAAO. And that GNA is in process, and partners in that process include the City of Portland, the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and the Behavioral Health Task Force. The program's really been working to apply lessons learned. A few examples here are changing relative from non-uniform safety partners to now having a uniformed approach for safety partners, which was a direct response to feedback from those using the space. We've also brought in support from groups such as Hearing Voices, Narcotics Anonymous, Instilling Hope, which is a peer-led pre-engagement support, Dual Diagnosis Anonymous, job training, and other supports. And additionally, community behavioral health treatment providers have also been on site to ensure that specific resources that are needed can be provided and those connections will be made. We've also strengthened the severe weather response to include a debrief model and a participant reentry process after severe weather. Finally, we've worked closely with first responders to develop enhanced communication strategies that are trauma-informed and to decrease barriers to incident response. You know, at the end of the day, this is a new program doing complex work. The county's partners have been learning and making adjustments as they go along. One other point that I want to not forget to mention is that it's also important to note this next phase for the BHRC is still on track for late spring, which adds 33 beds of shelter capacity and 19 beds for bridge to housing, which is a 90-day temporary housing situation that supports individualized housing plans and placement. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Janie Gullickson, Executive Director with MHAAO, and she can talk a little bit more about the program.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I am Janie Gullickson, she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of the peer-run organization, the Mental Health and Addiction Association of Oregon, or as we commonly refer to ourselves, MHAAO. MHAAO is one of the oldest and largest peer-run organizations in Oregon. We have more than a decade of experience providing trauma-informed, culturally responsive peer support services across the Tri-County area. Our expertise is peer-delivered services, including direct peer support services, training programs, and workforce development opportunities for the peer workforce. I want to be clear that MHAAO leadership responded immediately to concerns brought to them by Multnomah County. We launched an internal investigation led by an outside contractor. The investigation is ongoing, but MHAAO BHRC staff have fully cooperated with the investigation, have participated in ongoing training during the closure, and have willingly and formally signed attestations of professional codes of conduct. MHAAO will be open and transparent with the outcome of the investigation, and in the meantime, have increased staff training and revamped program operations. We are also doing work at a level that has never been attempted in this community. And as prepared as we were to run the day center on the first and second floors of the BHRC, we were shocked by the demand for these services on day one. As much experience as we have, the learning curve has been steep. But we are up to the task, and we are committed to continued learning and course correction, and we've made a difference in the individual lives of people who have connected to the peer specialists and to housing and treatment resources, and in the community where we've helped hundreds of people survive severe weather events in our first few months, including busing hundreds of people directly to emergency shelter after closing time. Lived experience is the foundation of peer services, and that peer support work is a profession with training and certification requirements. It is guided by core values, codes of conduct, ethics, and boundaries. MHAAO appreciates the ongoing collaboration with Multnomah County, and we will consistently strive for excellence in our service to the community. And with that, we'll open up for Q&A. We'll ask you to raise a hand so we can unmute you to ask questions. And please remember to tell us your name and the media outlet you work with.
I think Nicole had her hand up first.
Nicole, go ahead. please. Nicole, can you, she was in the waiting room. Nicole, you might have jumped out. Did you have a question?
Yep, sorry, I got kicked out of the meeting for a second. I'm Nicole Hayden from the Oregonian. I have a couple of questions. The
Oh,
first-
can I just make sure everyone is still in the meeting? Did people lose their access?
I got kicked out for a second.
Okay, can everybody see oh no, the participants are all here. Can people see where they are? Is anyone else in the waiting room? I'm not seeing people in the waiting room. Did we have a glitch? We might have had a glitch. Wow, sorry about this, everybody. This is a little bit unusual. Nicole, hang on just for a second, please. I'm going to see if I can see non-video part. Oh no, everybody's still here. Okay, awesome. Nicole, go ahead. Just wanted to make sure everybody was still in the room.
Yep. My first question is about the stats folks have shared, like the 12,000 visits a week, the 3,000 peer engagements. I was wondering if that was in total or if those were unduplicated numbers. And then the 300 referrals to substance use treatment. Is 300 the number of people that actually showed up to treatment, or is that just the number of people they referred to treatment? And then I know in the press release, it was noted that no clients were involved in the misconduct, but I was wondering if there was any documented impact to the clients, aside from not accessing services for 2 weeks.
Yeah, let me answer thanks for your question, Nicole. Let me answer the first question around the referrals and then around the services. So in terms of the participant service count, we've had 17,000 peer participants attend the program since open, and the average in the last week was 1,200. And those numbers are not unduplicated. We're working on getting unduplicated data, but don't have it yet at this time. And then relative to the 300 referrals, those are referrals. So referrals that the BHRC is making with peer participants out to community providers, not services delivered at external community providers.
Do you keep track of how many people actually get those services after they've been referred?
No, we don't have tracking on the exit side, on the side of services outside of the BHRC.
Okay, and then my other question was there any documented impact to clients from the misconduct?
I'd say the investigation is, they're still playing out an ongoing process, but at this time, we're not aware of any impact to clients.
Because I am recording and trying to keep the screen big, maybe someone else can call on other hands that you
Sure.
see, because I can't see them. Thanks, Valdez.
Yeah, Sophie Peel, go ahead.
Hi, sorry about that. This is Sophie Peel with Willamette Week. I have two questions. I guess my first one is, I come here pretty frustrated today, to be quite honest. We and I imagine other media outlets gave the county many opportunities to divulge whether there was more to the closure than just plan training and building updates. And I think there were a lot of us, and I think the public too, that something just smelled wrong. And here we are 3 weeks later being told something really serious happened. And I understand that you guys can't, don't want to compromise an investigation, but it also feels like you could have given us something. I mean, the answers that we received 3 weeks ago now just feel really disingenuous. And I guess my first question is, why do you think the public should feel that their trust hasn't been broken with the county after receiving those answers 3 weeks ago, and then now hearing something that is pretty damning?
So, Sophie, this is Julie, and I can take that and I can come back on camera so I can fully take that. Hang on just a second. I just need to get back to my camera so that I can
Okay.
that I can show you. Hang on, I'm admitting somebody else here too. The reality is that this is the most, I do hear your frustration, and I appreciate that you're trying to understand the position that we are in. This is the most disclosive press release you will see from a local government, and you're sitting here at a press availability. I want to take us back to that time 3
Hey,
weeks
Julie,
ago.
we can't see you. Can you please put your picture back up before continuing to answer? Thank you.
We lost your audio, Julie. Looks like you're muted.
There we are. Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry, when you're running the controls and I was letting KPD in. So I just want to say, I want to start over that I understand the frustration you're feeling. And I want to point out that this is the most disclosive press release you will see from a local government. And you're sitting here at a press availability. When I do want to take Willamette Week back, Sophie, you called me on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. because you said you had heard, and I quote, that something that happened between a client and a BHRC provider. And was there any one incident that precipitated the closure? I responded that we didn't have an incident of a client being harmed that prompted the closing. And I specifically told you that we had other reports, that we had received information that the contracted site on staff needed more training, and it was clear that the building needed security improvements. There were personnel complaints, as there have been since the BHRC opened. These were ones that our managers had gone to the staff about. Janie, I think I would ask you to weigh in on, because Janie answered the same way. So I really do understand your frustration, and I want you to know that we were trying to give you what was the accurate picture at the time. Janie, can you talk about why you asked the county to close?
Sorry, can I just say one more thing before Janie goes? Julie, I just
Sure.
want to clarify that my initial question was about whether something had happened between a client and a provider. And then once you had told me no, then I asked more broadly, so you're saying no precipitating incident occurred that led to the closure of this center. That's why I feel like we were just really misled, because I allowed the county an opportunity to expand on that. And to say whether that, because again, something that just didn't seem right. And in retrospect, it just feels like it was, I mean, honestly, it just feels dishonest. And I know you guys have bounds around what you can say when this kind of thing happens, especially when there's an investigation, but I just feel like you guys could have offered something instead of just kind of, saying again, it was planned, building improvements and training. So sorry, I just wanted to say that.
We appreciate that. Sophie, Janie, do you want to just explain a little bit about the training?
Sure. Hi, Sophie. I also talked to you that morning, and we had a very quick conversation because, yeah, the answer was simple. There was no precipitating event involving a client at all. And we had been really struggling to look for a time where we could close for 2 weeks. We'd been open for 4 months. I think what's very common to new programs, especially one of this nature, is that you get fully staffed right in the beginning with people who haven't done this work because it hasn't existed before, and then find that it's not for them. And so we had some staff turnover, and enough to the point where we needed to come to the county and ask to shut down for 2 weeks to have our core training, not to mention the in-service hours and closures that we had been that we had started a few months prior, 4 hours a day or two at a time, to get this additional training specific to the BHRC. And so the timing just was right with the safety upgrades that were needed. It was the perfect time to shut down, do the intense training period, as well as the safety upgrades, and launch a separate investigation into the allegations, which so far, with what we know, are unfounded. on the MHA side of things.
And I would say, Sophie, that I understand that the public's right to know is if something truly had happened that was egregious that we were somehow not disclosing, but that is not in fact the case. There were broad allegations made about mostly about relationships between people, consenting adult relationships, and that was something that obviously played into this, but was not, I think, something that was in the realm of what we could be discussing about a contractor's employees.
Thanks for that. And so are none of these allegations founded yet? Are these all just allegations at this point, or do you guys feel confident in, corroborating or confirming any of these things?
I think the investigation is still unfolding, but Janie, I don't know if you want to give comment.
Yeah, so far on the independent investigation MHAAO is doing, those accusations are unfounded. But again, it's ongoing, and so we don't have the full final outcome.
And again, Sophie, this is a mixed model where, it is county building, county funded, but we do have 3 separate contractors in there. So it's a really it's a mixed environment. And so we need to allow all of our partners to be able to have the time that they've been needing to do their due diligence.
And then just one last really quick question. So it looks like new capacity for the center right now is 25 people per day. Why is that?
So if we considered, did we want to do what we were tasked to do, and that's provide peer support services that build relationships with folks and connect them to resources, and or were we managing a milieu? And we determined that 25 was the right number to match the staff that we had with the vision and the model this program has, and that's to get people connected to the resources and hopefully housing that they want and need. And it's gone beautiful today. I just want to add that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Let's go to Emily Gersh next.
Hi, Emily Gersh with K2 News. I have a couple of questions. First of all, the old staffing was 80 people, correct? That was the old number?
Are you asking on the MHAAO side of staffing?
Yeah, for the capacity when the center opened.
Oh, when we were fully staffed, I mean, there's the fire marshal limits, right? And that's not, that wasn't doable. We've had 80 people in the center at one time. But that was something that we found we were more managing a milieu rather than being able to connect fully people to ongoing services, build those relationships, and do more than just, manage the space and line up for showers and bathrooms.
So we talked to some of the people at the center today going back in. They said, prior to its closure, as many as 80 people, as you said, had been admitted. Now they're limiting it to 25. I mean, that is a significant difference for people that are unable to access these services, many people seeking drug-related help. Can you just comment on the people who are concerned about not being able to get these services that they once had?
Yeah, I think, Emily, something that's missing is it's 25 people at a time for 3-hour blocks. And so what we've done is created a sort of a 25 people for the first 3 hours. They got their hand stamped. Anybody else who came to the door, we told them today we opened at 10 till 1 o'clock. We did the transition with the next 25 who had color-coded tickets. They'll be here for 3 hours, able to access the services. And again, in 3 hours, we'll transition again. So we will actually serve probably as many people more thoughtfully, more personably, and just on a rotating basis.
This reduced number of people who are being allowed in, is this part of the overall security improvement plan?
This was a program decision on our end.
You mentioned an investigation is being done stemming from this March 29th report. Is OSHA involved in that investigation at all?
No. No. As Julie mentioned, it was about consenting adult relationships.
Now, you know, the press release had a lot to say, but it was kind of vague about the security training for the new security team, the new contracted workers. Can you talk about what those workers were trained to do, how it differed from the original team, and what went into that training to give people the confidence that this center is now a safe place for them to go to?
We have our safety and security chief, Dorothy Elmore, on. Dorothy, and if you wanted to comment about the training going on with the new security contractor.
So hi, I'm Dorothy Elmore. I'm the Director of Workplace Security for the county. And for the security that we have in place right now, their training is trauma-informed, trauma-led, and de-escalation training. And right now, because of the transition that was quickly kind of like we had to make a move fairly quickly, the training is an ongoing training. We made sure that the officers that are in place right now, or the safety partners that are in place right now, have the necessary basic training, the de-escalation training, the understanding of how to work in that BHRC's milieu of working with people with much needed services or much needed help in getting those kinds of services. So there are ongoing training. They will be involved in a very more intensive training moving forward. So right now they have the basic de-escalation trauma-informed training right now.
And how many employees are in this security team? And also, how does this training differ from the previous contractor that was hired to do security there?
Right now, we have 10 safety partners that are assigned to the BHRC to provide 24/7 security coverage at that facility. The training that they had prior to the safety partners were a partnered training that they went through the same training that the peers went through. They were actually in the same training modules. Because of the transition, they didn't have that opportunity to go through that same training, but we're looking forward to having them participate in the same curriculum type training that the peers have undergone. And so that's something that we're looking moving forward. It's just that because of the quick changeover or quick transitioning, they just didn't have that time. I didn't have time to provide that training for them.
Thanks, Emily. Is that, are you done, Emily?
That's
we
it,
also,
thank you.
You bet. Jenny Young, Jenny, do you want to jump on? She can't raise her hand.
Hey, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so sorry. I'm sorry if you guys already addressed this. I was having some audio issues in the beginning. But how can you be certain that, or can you be certain that no clients were involved in this in any way? And if so, how?
On the MHAO side of things, that wasn't even part of any allegations. I mean, so that's not been a concern at all. And again, the allegations were between what was considered inappropriate consenting adult relationships, not with clients, but across workforce.
Right. I mean, but I'm not talking about just the consenting adult relationships. You had a security guard who was using drugs on the premises, and I'm sure clients interacted with that security guard. I mean, how did clients did they know about this? And, how do you know if they were involved, if not? I mean, I'm just asking for certainty because it was mentioned in the press release a couple of times that no clients were involved or, to your knowledge, were involved in any way.
Dorothy is going to speak in a minute, but I would say, yeah, from the very moment this first raised, it was more of an employee-to-employee type situations and relationship. No clients were identified. And through the course of the due diligence and doing the work and talking to staff, we have no reason to believe that the clients were subject to any seeing or participating in any of the things that have been alleged. But Dorothy was going to speak on.
And Jenny, that's accurate. We had no allegations made by any clients or any participants regarding any involvement in what was going on at the BHRC. It was all staff related.
Okay, sorry, thank you. One more. So for the sake of the timeline, I know you guys were notified by DPI about this guard on April 7th. When did the incident occur, and when was that person fired?
That is something that you're going to have to go to DPI about. DPI informed us of, or informed me of the admission by one of their staff who was a safety partner. I don't know at what time or date that interview took place. That DPI was an internal investigation. Their investigation, as I know it, is still ongoing. So that is a question I cannot answer for certainty.
Thank you.
Thanks for those questions, Jenny. Let's go to Daisy and then Shane Dixon Kavanaugh on deck. Go ahead, Daisy.
Thank you for allowing us to ask a few questions. I'm Daisy Value.
Daisy, just FYI, coming through very garbled.
Want to try again? Otherwise, we can come back to you, Daisy. We can go to Shane and then come back to you. Oh, and Daisy, you can also put your question in the chat to everyone. And then, and while you're doing that, maybe we can talk to Shane.
Let's go to Shane. Go ahead, Shane.
Hi there, Shane Dixon Kavanaugh from the Oregonian. Can everybody hear me okay?
Loud and
Yep.
clear.
Wonderful. So I have a few questions. The first one, Tom started touching on this a little earlier, but what exactly is prohibiting the county or the resource center from tracking client referrals to treatment services beyond just we made the referral and that's and that's the extent of the data that we capture? What's prohibiting us from finding out how many people actually end up taking up the county on those referrals?
Yeah, Tom, do you want to take that one? Your behavioral health vast experience.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Yeah, we're working actually, thanks for the question, Shane. We're working on implementing a data system that will do exactly that. And really, without kind of getting into the complicated, kind of nature of how that's built and how that works in like a distributed network with a lot of different behavioral health providers and then one sole referent. We know that's an area that we're wanting to dial in because that's something that really shows the results of the program long term. And that's really something that we want ultimately is, when you have a low barrier program, what your hope is that for someone that's been, outside of a formal system and living outside and not connected, that they're going to go into a program like the BHRC, they're going to build trust, and that trust is going to lead them to, taking up the staff on that help and getting to that next step. And so that's definitely something we want to be able to report out on the future in terms of the outcomes.
Great, thank you. Next question. When the center closed abruptly several weeks ago, my understanding is that neither the county nor the center informed numerous area partners and government partners. The city of Portland was not informed that this was closing down. Surrounding neighborhood businesses and properties were not informed of this. I have to imagine that many of the people who are accessing the services of the resource center were not informed prior to this closing down suddenly. And if I recall correctly, the county did not actually publicize this information besides putting a note on the front door. Can you sort of explain why there wasn't any sort of outreach around the closure of the center when it first occurred?
Sure. Shane, I can take that one. Valdez Bravo, interim director over here. And I'll maybe go to Janie after this just to talk about some of the specific types of actions that needed to take at this time. But essentially, this concern was first raised late in the evening on March 29th, and it was escalated up through the behavioral health up to myself. It was, like I said, it was late in the evening on a Wednesday. We immediately called for a huddle to happen that next morning with county leadership to where we could talk about the nature of the allegations and what was being shared to make sure we're on the same page. And then in conjunction and talking to our trusted partner, Janie, who has exhibited just excellent leadership throughout this whole experience, the decision was made that because of what was needed for the investigation, in conjunction with all the things that have been aforementioned about the needed improvements, some of the enhancements, there was that Plan, Do, Study, Act continuous improvement cycle, what the opportunities were. We realized that we needed to act. We took the allegations very seriously, even though they were allegations. And we acted quickly and promptly to make sure that Janie's team could do the due diligence and take action that they needed to do. I mean, so many times I feel like the community is looking to us to, for accountability and to make sure that our programs are running well. And we just took this very seriously, wanted to act very swiftly. And it was not an easy decision talking with county leadership to make that closure, but given the nature of the allegations and everything, we realized that we needed to step back, we needed to pause, take a time out, and then, but in the future, if it's something that's less abrupt and unexpected, there will be, we have already had conversations with city partners, with the neighbors about how we can make sure that they have that advanced communication so they can plan for it. But again, this was not something that we planned in advance. It came up in the nature of taking some bold, decisive action based on some very serious allegations. With that, I'll hand it off to Jeannie just to talk about from her perspective.
Yeah, and if I could just address a couple of specific questions. So we notified healthcare and behavioral health providers the day of closure. We changed the website info and the external facing info. I think we had a miss in communicating with the city of Portland, just an internal, someone thought someone else was communicating it, and then we kind of caught that didn't happen. But that was, I think, an unintentional miss on our side. And then, yeah, you raise a great point about communicating with downtown neighbors. That's definitely something that we want to, work on and keep building on. And that's communication. We're codifying that in the Good Neighbor Agreement. So that's definitely something that we're committed to with our downtown partners.
So on the topic of the Good Neighbor Agreement, you all have mentioned this a couple of times now. When exactly did the county start working on a Good Neighbor Agreement? Did it only begin after the center shut down back in March?
Tom, do you want to speak about the GNA?
No, it's been since fall of 2022, but Janie, do you want to speak to that? October 2022?
Sure. Yeah, that's right. Tom, thank you. Yeah, Shane, that was just what we learned from talking with other similar community partner organizations, I believe Outside In and New Avenues for Youth. Other social service organizations have Good Neighbor Agreements. And so I created one, and we had listening sessions with our neighbors, the Downtown Neighborhood Association, ORFLA, and the Behavioral Health Task Force, where folks weighed in and shared what they would like to see. I gave a draft, feedback back and forth. So this has been a work in progress, as Tom shared, since October, before the center opened.
Wonderful, thank you. And final question, I'm sorry for asking so many. In terms of the alleged inappropriate relationships between employees within the center, where exactly were these alleged relationships taking place?
In an unoccupied floor.
Is that part of the reason for some of the, I think there was mention in the press release about doors, locking security mechanisms for some of the upper floors? Does that have anything to do with it?
That's a different community partner who will be running the housing. And I think from their experience, they probably requested it on that basis. But not related.
Thank you.
Daisy has a question in the chat. She's having audio issues, but she's asking, why did it take nearly 3 weeks to inform the public about the allegations and drug use with contracted staff? How can you assure drug use and these type of allegations won't happen again? I understand DPI was asked to replace staff, but there are 2 other contractors also asked to replace staff. Why or why not?
I'll take the first question, why it's taken this long. You know, these anytime you're working with people and systems and organizations, anytime you have allegations of a certain nature, you know, you have to treat them very credibly and do the due diligence. That doesn't usually happen overnight. And in this case, you know, it took some time to make sure that there was a systematic approach, there's an objective approach, and really hats off to the approach that MHAO has done. The other contractor providers have followed their own processes. But again, we wanted to make sure that they were allowed the time and space they needed to be able to do those, so that when we did come to you in a very transparent fashion here, that we were able to provide you with good hard facts. And in terms of how we can assure drug use and these type of allegations won't happen again, I mean, that's part of the reason we acted so swiftly here. This is a very vulnerable community. This is also, the BHRC is one of our highest priorities, our biggest assets here at the Multnomah County Health Department, being able to treat this houseless population. And that's why, again, hats off to MHAO for creating their standards and code of conduct that all of their staff have received training on and attestation, that they are well aware of the expectations. We hold ourselves to a very high standard here at the Multnomah County Health Department, and I know MHAO holds their staff to that same high standard. So with them as our trusted partner, we are hoping that this new, renewed, invigorated approach is going to bear fruit for us, and hopefully we won't have problems again. But you know what? If there is, we will always take concerns seriously. We will partner again, and we'll take whatever actions we need to make sure that there's accountability within our Behavioral Health Resource Center, because our clients they deserve nothing but the best, and we're going to give it to them. So that's why we're all here today.
Jenny Young followed up and said, am I reading correctly that staff violated the code of care? Are you guys able to address this if you haven't already? I think that is not clear, Jenny. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, can you hear me, Julie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I said, I had audio issues earlier, so I don't know if that was addressed, but I wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly, that, you know, with the 252 incidents, since you guys opened, it says that some went from extreme, clients acted in an extreme way, or no, not clients, ranging from mild when staff had to redirect a client's behavior to extreme when someone was acting in a way that violated the code of care. What does that mean?
That's a great question. Janie, do you want to take that? That's a great question.
Sure, we use an accountability tool that sort of guides our staff and our protocol for responding to mild behaviors all the way to serious and extreme. And extreme is something that's out of our hands, 911 type of thing, and we would have to ask that person to leave, likely with a trespass. And mild is something that can probably be de-escalated, redirected, supported through conversation with peer support staff, and everything in between on that accountability tool. So extreme would be violence, showing up with a gun, something like that. Did that answer your question?
I think so. So it's referring to a client's behavior violating the code of care.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much. Yes.
And there's one final question, and then we'll wrap up. Daisy is asking, DPI was asked to replace staff, but were the other 2 contractors also asked to replace staff too? Why or why not?
Looking at, three different partners partnering with the county here with the BHRC, believe that with the level of training and expectation setting for the security aspect, that was what motivated that decision. I can't speak to the other partners, but Dorothy, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about anything related to the security approach and using a new vendor there.
Well, we did. DPI was asked actually to replace the officers that were, once we have a serious allegation of safety partners, we didn't know how many or if it included all of the safety partners. So we erred on the side of caution and we asked to replace, the county asked to replace all of the safety partners that were assigned to the BHRC. I asked DPI if they could replace that staffing level, which are 10 to 11 officers. They could not. And so we asked Northwest Enforcement to go ahead and provide those security staffing at that point in time. The other contractors, which is a janitorial and then MHAAO, I can't speak to janitorial. They're not under my authority. And of course, Janie is MHAAO, so they have to speak to that.
All right, well, everybody, thank you for coming, and you can always shoot me an email, or Sarah, and Dennis is also on the call, Sarah Dean. Our numbers and emails are at the top of the press release, and we appreciate very much Valdez, Dorothy, Tom, and Janie being here today, and all of you, and thanks, and have a good afternoon.